Just a moment. We'll catch up with three of our legislative councillors and we'll talk with you. 1300 222 936. Love your input this morning on Mornings Around Tasmania. I want to say good morning to our guest this morning, Dean Harris, Independent MLC for Huon. Dean Harris, good morning to you.
Morning, Leon.
Let's say good morning to Beck Thomas, who is representing the member for Elwick, broadly the Glenorchy area in southern Tasmania. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Leon.
And let's take you to the northwest of the state. In fact, a little further than that this morning. Ruth Forrest joins us on the phone, the member for Murchison. Ruth Forrest, good morning.
Good morning, Leon.
Lovely to have.
Good morning to Beck and Dean.
It's interesting to see the deal-making going on with the proposed or potential future governments. Beck Thomas, would you like to see some more collaboration like this offered to members of the upper house?
Yeah, look, Leon, I think it's really important that the government and acknowledges that the support across the parliament is necessary if they are to progress its legislative agenda. And absolutely, I think it's really important going forward that there are protocols in place to manage relationships across the parliament. Whoever forms government needs to manage relationships effectively, because that's how you achieve outcomes. Without good relationships, you just simply can't achieve outcomes. And the protocols that are being suggested are a really great idea. Some of the pre-budget planning processes that are being discussed are a great idea, but really they should apply across the parliament to all members.
We should go around the room, get everyone's reflections on the state election. A lot of people asking what happened. Dean Harris, what happened? What do you make of the election result as we know it so far?
Leon, I think one thing stands out is one of the old sayings is that the voters don't get it wrong. I don't think they got it wrong. We had an election 16 months ago and we're here with almost a status quo. So I think that's interesting in itself. And what it shows to me is that the people should be trusted with their elected members to do what's in their best interests. And I think that's important for members of parliament to now take that on board and certainly get outcomes that we require.
Who do you think should form government off the back of this? It's up in the air at this stage, Dean Harris. Who should form government? Does Jeremy Rockcliffe have a mandate? Is it Dean Winters to take? What do you think?
Oh, I certainly don't think there's a mandate, Leon, and it's interesting when you have those discussions. I think the Liberal Party sit on about 40% of the vote. That's certainly, in my opinion, is not a mandate. You know, we had a referendum not that long ago for the yes vote. And that turned a 40% yes vote, and that was described
as... the voice to Parliament.
Yes, on the voice to Parliament. And that was described as a huge loss. You know, that 40% that supported that, and I was one of those, was described as a huge loss. So I think for Jeremy to presume that he's got a 40% majority and that is not quite right, but... yeah, it's interesting where it'll go.
Notwithstanding the fact that it was a thumping preference for the Liberal Party over the Labor Party. And so, Ruth Forrest, how does it look to you? How do you describe what happened on Saturday night?
Well, I mean, I actually back Dean's comments there that the people don't get it wrong. And it's interesting when you look at some of the figures at the Electoral Commission at their reporting that the informal or invalid vote is down. So I think people have been quite deliberate about their decisions. And whether that's because there was a lot more pre-polling because it's holiday, winter holiday season, people tend to go away, school holidays, all of that. But at the end of the day, there is no clear majority, and it's going to be incumbent on both leaders of the major parties to recognise that they don't have the so-called mandate in their own right. They're going to have to work across the parliament. I go back to Beck's comment there that the whole parliament needs to be included in some of these decisions because it's a small parliament, we're a small state. We need to use the expertise we've got and work together and work differently. We can't keep doing the things the same way we've done them because clearly that's not working. We've seen that with now 3 early elections. And so we can't keep doing it the same way. We've got to try things differently. We've got to work across the parliament. Anyone who says the parliament of 35 members needs to take a long, hard look at themselves and remember there are 15 members in the upper house who are all members of parliament, who are all involved in the decision-making, the committee work, the reviewing of legislation, and the passage of legislation. No legislation can come into law until it's passed both houses. So I think we need to take a different approach and both leaders of major parties are going to have to work across the whole parliament to determine how best to lead the state forward for the betterment of Tasmania.
Dean Harris, am I right? A lot of constituents you meet don't understand that the work of Parliament has actually completely ground to a halt. Have you getting people sort of wondering what's going on and perhaps having a misapprehension that effectively the Parliament has closed its doors for however many months it takes to resolve this and get a new Parliament back in sitting?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Leon. When you're out and about, they understand that you're in an election mode. Some don't even understand whether I had to run or not. But certainly, yeah, the implications of elections go far beyond just the 6-week campaign. And as you mentioned, our committee work all stops and the work that goes on, the day-to-day running of Parliament, certainly comes to a halt.
Beck, what does budget repair look like to you? I noticed that in the Liberal Party's offerings to the crossbench, they're talking about a parliamentary liaison. They're talking about a budget panel of some kind. What should that look like to you?
Leon, I think what Saturday shows is that the people of Tasmania want a diverse range of views represented in the Parliament and in informing policy. And when people are elected to Parliament, yes, we're there to particularly in the upper house, to review legislation, to pass legislation. What people also expect of us as elected members is that we will have influence over budget decisions, that we will have influence over policy, that we have some influence over the operations of government and the state service. Whilst the cabinet is selected by whoever forms government, people still expect that there'll be some representation for them in that regardless. And I think there's an opportunity here to think differently. Could Cabinet be representative of the makeup of Parliament? That is the will of the people, to have representation, not just in Parliament, but in policy decisions. That's what this outcome shows. So I would encourage that there be consideration given to what the Cabinet looks like from whoever forms government. How about we do things differently? And then that would lead to broader representation in these sort of budget decisions. But in terms of budget repair, I think that process needs to be collaborative, and we need to change the process by which budget's developed and the estimates process. We're scrutinising the budget pretty much after the fact. The estimates process that we have in place consumes so much time and resources from the state service, from advisors, from us as elected members. And for what outcome? For what influence does that actually have, other than holding the government to account, asking them some hard questions, making them feel uncomfortable sometimes? But what Tasmanians expect from significant resources that processes like that consume is actual influence and change. And I think, if we were to revise the budget process to have elected members from across the Parliament coming together to set some broad budget parameters, representing their communities about the important issues and having some frank and fearless discussions, understanding that we're not all going to get what we want and there needs to be a bit of give from everybody, but understanding that we all represent diverse views, and somewhere in the middle is probably a great outcome for the people of Tasmania rather than at the extremes all the time.
936 ABC Radio Hobart, ABC Northern Tasmania, the voices you can hear this morning. Beck Thomas, Independent MLC for Elwick, Ruth Forrest, Independent MLC for Murchison, and Dean Harris, Independent MLC for Huon. Ruth Forrest, to you, what does all of this mean for Marinus? It's a proposed interconnector to the mainland. We're expecting a decision to be made, if it hasn't already, in days. And it'll have implications, as I said on Saturday night and I've said repeatedly, for Tasmania for decades to come, a half a century or more. So what should happen now with that project?
Yeah, Dan, this feeds right into the whole situation the state's facing in terms of our budget, and also the impact on Tasmanians with power or energy prices. It's a massive decision. The Energy Committee, and as we mentioned, or Dean mentioned too, the Energy Committee and every other committee stops immediately the Parliament's prorogued. And so there were many committees, like Public Accounts Committee, the Energy Committee and many others, that were in the process of preparing reports to actually inform the public more on a lot of these matters. And so we can't do that. We can't report and we can't complete that work until after Parliament resumes and those committees are re-established, and possibly with other membership. So it's incredibly difficult when that happens. But to go back to the point of Marinus, there are real serious issues and really big questions that need to be answered about Marinus. we should have time to, we, the people of Tasmania and all elected members, should have time to scrutinise and look at the whole of state business case. We know the Treasurer had that. In the middle of May, there was a commitment made to ensure there was at least a month of public visibility of that document before a decision was made. We also know that the decision is expected to be made by the three owners, the Victorian government, the Tasmanian government and the federal government this month. And we still have not seen that whole of state business case. If decisions are being made, Leon, that would be a gross abrogation of trust, I think, for the people of Tasmania, because we should not be signed up to something that we don't know the full implications of. Okay. So I expect that if whoever's making the decisions at the moment, and it's really hard to know who that is, they say we cannot make a decision right now. We need to wait for Parliament to be reformed. We need to wait until we've got can release that whole of state business case, allow public scrutiny and scrutiny of Parliament of it before any decisions made.
Mornings around Tasmania. We've got three legislative councillors in the studio this morning talking about how Parliament looks to them. How should we move forward, Beck Thomas, on the issue of the stadium? Could one compromise be that the government, whomever seeks to form it, agrees that the process for approving a stadium or looking at it goes back properly through, endorsed through the project of state significance process with the Tasmanian Planning Commission to do all of their work and refer back to Parliament with decisions based on that? Do you think that would be a compromise that might work for the stadium?
Well, given where we are time-wise, Leon, I think and I hope that the POS process will be able to be finalised before the government even has the opportunity to be tabling enabling legislation or otherwise going through making a commitment to go back to sticking with the POS process. So regardless of whichever path whoever forms government takes, my hope is that we will have the information that has been gathered and analysed through the POS process to help inform our decision making, because one thing I've held throughout this whole debate so far is that making informed decisions is really important to me, and I want to see as much evidence as possible before me to help inform my decision making. So clearly there's been a lot of hearings happening on the stadium, there's been a lot of information gathered, and ultimately, the assessment done by planning experts is really important to inform our decision, so that's my hope. But I think people are sick of talking about the stadium, to be honest. Out and about in my community, they're saying, I'm just sick of hearing about it, and the divisiveness that it's created in the community. It's really it's not nice.
Dean Harris, I'm wondering what your peeps down on the hill are saying to you. Same thing as they're saying to the Beck. Are they sick of talking about it? Would they be more comfortable if the Tasmanian Planning Commission were fully sort of endorsed by whomever forms government to go through it?
Oh, I think there's absolutely, Leon, there's a range of cost of living pressures and instances of that. But to do with the stadium, I think Beck raised a point about timeframes there. The timeframe for the project of state significance is, as I understand it, mid-September for their report. It's looking like we'll be back in Parliament around that time. So for the enabling legislation, I don't see the case for that stacking up anymore with the project of state significance. So I think the TPC should continue as they are at the moment, doing their work, and for, as Beck mentioned, to be able to have informed decisions, that would be a good report to have.
It's interesting to reflect on that. Not back until mid-September, Tasmania's Parliament. Even yesterday, watching federal Parliament return, you think, wow, I felt like the federal election was ages ago, and they're only just getting back now. I mean, that's the period of time we're talking about for state to return with the Parliament. And of course, Ruth, Forrest, we still don't have a budget yet. So the whole sort of fall of, or the call to an election happened before a budget was passed. We had an interim measure which keeps the lights on and our public servants paid until the end of the year. But whomever forms government has to deliver a budget, and I'm not sure anyone will accept the promises of last time that budget repair is going to happen out over the forward estimates. Trust us. Ruth, Forrest?
Yeah, well, that's the biggest furphy of all. The There was no clear pathway to surplus, and unfortunately we didn't get to budget estimates. So because one of my first questions to the Treasurer was going to be, you show me your modelling that proves a pathway to surplus. What we need, whoever forms government and whoever is Treasurer, will have the really onerous task, in my view, of bringing forward a budget before the end of the year, and it's going to be a real challenge because we have to turn things around. We have to change the way we're doing things, and it's going to take years. The deterioration in the state's financial position has not happened overnight. It's been years in the making, and I've been writing about this for years now, and I've been roundly ignored in many respects and basically told I've been wrong, particularly by the Liberal Party, who haven't yet accepted there's a problem. At least the Labor Party did acknowledge there was a problem. They didn't provide in their fiscal strategy that they put out, which wasn't really compliant with the Act, but neither was the Liberals, so even there. But they do recognise there's a problem we've got to fix. It will take years, but we've got to start, and we do need to start with the next budget that will have to be put together almost as soon as Parliament goes back. The government whoever's the government will need to be working on that, and they'll need to, in my view, be very convincing about how they're going to restructure things and change things and take a much longer term view to reduce our debt.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll be easier to do if there's more parties arguing for it and taking the hits that'll come with any possible increase of taxes, reduction in spending and so on.
We do need a collaborative approach to this. Some of those things that were mentioned in the stability agreement or whatever it's called, they should be just normal run-of-the-mill. That's what everyone should expect in our parliament when we've got a make-up of the parliament as it is. It shouldn't be, oh wow, look at this bright new shiny thing we're offering you. That should be normal practice because we all have a responsibility.
We've got to keep moving this morning. To you, who do you expect, Ruth Forrest, to form government after the shakedown, the promises, shakedown's a pejorative term, after the shakeout is what I meant to say, after the shakeout of the voting, after the promises, who do you expect, who do you think has the authority to form government in the next parliament?
Oh, I think we need to wait until the rest of the final seats are determined because not that it's going to change a whole lot, but you can't negotiate with people you don't know who are going to be there. So I think it's really unclear. As I understand our constitution, the Liberal Party will, as the current incumbent, will go, as the Premier suggested, he'll go to the Governor and seek to be recommissioned. She will need to be convinced that he has that confidence or send him back to the Parliament to test it. If that happens, we may see no confidence motion in that Parliament if they don't get the numbers. But it's still a lot more water under the bridge to go. I think we know.
Dean Harris, who do you expect to form government? Do you think one party over the other has the sort of authority out of the election, in a word, to form government?
Oh, no, I think I go back to that 40% vote. I think the Premier Rockcliffe is there at the moment and he will, I suspect, get the chance to be tested on the floor.
Beck Thomas, who do you think should form government out of the election result from Saturday night?
Look, I'm not sure, Leon. I back the comments of my colleagues here. I would just say that I hope that whoever forms government does so in a collaborative manner, working across the Parliament. And I really hope for this 52nd Parliament of Tasmania that every one of us 50 members recognises and remembers every day when we get out of bed we are there to represent the people who have elected us to serve them in Parliament, which is an absolute privilege. And they expect us to work together in their best interests. And if we can all do that and commit to doing that, negotiate, compromise, listen, understand each other and work together, then we can achieve great things for the people of Tasmania.
Great to talk to all of you this morning. Beck Thomas, Dean Harris and Ruth Forrest, to all three of you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.